Believers, there is one important lesson that many believers never learn. And because they never learned it during this lifetime, that means that during this lifetime, they never operate in victory. There is one important thing you absolutely need to learn, and that is that feelings are not facts. Now you may say, Rashid, of course feelings are not facts. It's a fact you're feeling a certain way, but just because you feel a certain way, that does not mean that what you're feeling is what's going on. That should be obvious. But in daily life, many believers operate on this principle, which is an expectation that feelings are facts. And they confuse feelings with their intuition. Your intuition will cause you to feel a certain way, but feelings are not automatically a result of your intuition at work. So don't confuse everything you feel as being your intuition. Look, let me give an example to you. Let's say you grew up in a household where there was this militaristic attitude coming from your parents, and everyone else around you also had this militaristic attitude on school, on kindergarten, and all. You always spoke, addressed people with their last name. Only if the other individual allowed you to give you permission to use their first name, you were allowed to use their first name. And let's say now you arrive in college, and or at the university. At university, the professors, as colleagues, address each other by the first name. Students address each other with the first name. Everyone addresses each other with the first name, and everyone is just open and relax one another. And there's a good climate. But now you are uncomfortable. You feel uncomfortable. You feel violated. But are you violated? No. What's going on is as follows. You grew up in an environment where people held on to control. So controlling how others call you was the main form of narcissistic supply that people got. You are not delivered from that pattern, so over time you agreed with the pattern and you began to use it also to get a sense of control by punishing people that didn't conform to the standard you're holding on to. Now you're in an environment where the standard is not applicable at all and everyone's at ease. So this shows you reality that what you are holding on to is a hoax. But you've invested so much in it, so now you're uncomfortable. But because you don't want to face that others narcissistically exploited you and that you also turned into a narcissistic exploiter by agreeing with this pattern, now because you don't want to face all of this, you become upset with the whole university, saying that those people are like a cult, those people are very rude, just address people with the first name. No, 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 no. The issue is you. When you were a child and they punish you, so they afflict you because you didn't address someone with the last name, what you should have realized is, hold on a minute. But why is a last name so important? If multiple people have the same last name, how are they sure I'm addressing them? So you should have realized, okay, something's off here. But you got, over time, you tolerated this nonsense that society perceived as something valuable, and you never questioned why. So when you encountered others who saw through it and who refused to comply with this restriction, you were shocked. So to protect yourself from feeling bad about how people treated you, namely your parents and your environment, you didn't want to go through that. Because if you had to face the fact that the people around you were controlling, that means that they didn't love you. Because people that really authentically love you are not seeking out to control you. And the fact that they were willing to afflict you with harm, maybe not physically but psychologically, because you didn't give in to their restriction, that shows you that those people cannot be trusted. But you are trauma bonded to your parents and to the community around you where you grew up. That's why you don't want to face this. So it's easier to blame the other individual for how you feel. So you feel victimized because they don't give in to your restriction. You call them rude, you call them disrespectful, and now you want to give that pain to them by either ignoring them or by attacking them. In this case, the feeling is it's factual you're feeling it, but just because you feel it doesn't mean it's true. In this case, the discomfort is on you. You're the one uncomfortable because you're the one that's toxic. Let's say now you're in a group and everyone talks very friendly towards one another, but towards you they're very harsh. And you feel uncomfortable. Now, what's going on here? They're not harsh towards you too directly, but you sense that there's this hidden anger towards you. Your inner radar picks this up. So even if people don't use harsh or negative words against you, you feel uncomfortable. Now, this is your intuition that hints you that something is off with the communication with those other people. There's nothing wrong with you, but what you feel now is your intuition causing you to feel uncomfortable in your body, so you feel it physically, and that's a warning signal that people don't have the best intentions with you. So I've given you two examples now. In both examples, the individual felt uncomfortable. In one example, it was the result of someone holding on to some restriction. In the second, or let me say in the second example, the individual felt uncomfortable as a result of their spirit radar alarming them. And this is what I want you to understand. Nobody can gaslight your intuition. Your intuition cannot be gaslighted. Your intuition cannot be fooled. Your mind can be fooled, but not your intuition. Let me explain. Someone can tell you through repetition, and that's how you learn it, that relationships have to be predictable and slow in the beginning. If they teach you this, then you will go out through life scanning everyone you encounter based on this pattern, slow and repetitive. So when you encounter people, you want to see if they have something in common with you that makes them predictable. So this is a pattern of thinking. You are told to be predictable because that's considered reliable by society. So now you want others to be predictable also. And what happens now is that you don't even see that this predictability is a trap. Because when you are predictable, people can easily set you up. People can easily scam you. People can easily gaslight you when you're predictable. But society told you to be predictable. And society rewarded you for being predictable. So now, because you've been deformed mentally into thinking that being predictable is the best thing, now you want others to be predictable also. So when you encounter someone that's a bit chaotic, you tend to dismiss them. But then you encounter someone else who's very predictable and very restricted in how they approach you. And because they're so restricted in how they approach you, you feel flattered. You consider them respectful, because respect means forced validation. So because they validate your restrictions, you feel flattered by them. So you already feel a bond with them based on the trauma bonds you have with society. Because those restrictions only cause trauma bonds, nothing else. So now that you feel that you have this restriction in common, you tend to open up yourself more. And indeed, things are predictable, and slowly you grow towards one another emotionally. But years later, you're in a divorce or you're in a hospital after being wounded by this individual. This individual is a malignant narcissist. And now that you are out of that danger, you go online to watch anti-narcissist videos, and they tell you that relationships ought to be slow in the beginning, and people have to be predictable and stable. They may not say direct like that, but that's what it comes down to. You're still trauma bonded, so when you hear this, you feel validated and you agree with it. Well, hold on a minute. That is why you ended up with that malignant narcissist to begin with. You were predictable because that the predator could easily frame you into a situation without you being aware of it, and because you were so into those restrictions of society, the predator knew how to trick you, how to make you tick. So the predator used some of those triggers that society installed in you to lure you. So what happened was society groomed you into becoming an easy prey for narcissists. That's what society did. Some of you, it was different. Society told you to always open your mouth and stand up for yourself. And now predators want to trick you into a fight, and that's how they tricked you into a fight, by going against the restrictions you hold onto, and because you felt attacked by their quote-unquote disrespect, you defend yourself, and now things escalated. So, you have been mentally deformed to agree with your own ruin. That's what society did to you. So that's what gaslighting is. Gaslighting is mentally deforming someone to agree with something that will never benefit them in any way, shape, or form. But the thing with being gaslighted is that you are not aware you're gaslighted. And here's another thing. Once you are gaslighted, you become insensitive to your own intuition. Your intuition is still there. It works 24/7, whether you want it or not. But because you are gaslighted, you're emotionally clogged on the inside. And because you're emotionally clogged by the trauma bond, when your intuition hints things to you, whether good or bad, you don't realize it. So when it comes to gaslighting can only happen to the mind, and that affects how people feel. But gaslighting never works on the natural design of God, because how God designed you as male or female, that's natural. No gaslighting can work there. So people that are gaslighted, they cannot have clear discernment. They may have some discernment if situation is way too off. For example, someone sends you an email asking you for all your information. Of course, nobody in the right minds, even people who are quite desperate for opportunities, will think this is a bit too good to be true. So when something is clearly off, anyone can notice it. But people that are gaslighted, there comes a point that even that basic common sense of theirs disappears. Because as a human being, you are designed to operate in all your senses, including your spirit senses. And your intuition is one of your spirit senses. And that's the spirit sense that's numbed down by society. So, when someone is uncomfortable, it can be for two reasons. Either there's real danger going on and their intuition hints it to them, or they're holding on to some restriction and that restriction weighs down on them unless the restriction is fed. Because mental restrictions, if you don't feed them with relief, you're going to feel the weight of it. So, the first thing you do when you feel uncomfortable is to self reflect. Why? And am I feeling uncomfortable? And how is it I'm feeling uncomfortable in this situation? Just self reflect. If you do that regularly, you realize often that the discomfort has nothing to do with the other individual or with the situation, but with you. And then you realize, so there's something I'm believing or holding on to that's not correct. What is it? And that's how you uproot stuff. And that's how you get delivered. But the default reaction, it's not even a response. The default reaction of most people when they feel uncomfortable is to flee, is to get relief. They get relief by either walk away from the situation just like that means ignoring, or by attacking. But whether you ignore or attack, it's still fleeing. And then you have society with its false teachers giving you strategies how to flee, and we agree with them. Whether it's self-defense, whether it's enforcing boundaries, whether it is just walking away or just ghosting people, whatever strategy society offers you is just to keep you on fleeing. And the more you flee, the worse the restriction becomes. And then one day the restriction is so heavy that you are so desperate to escape it, and now you are delusional. Now anyone that comes by with any type of promise, you jump on them. So anyone out there that holds on to society's restrictions, eventually they'll end up delusional some point in their lives. And once they reach that state of delusion, it's then that scam artists and con artists can easily trick them, and they end up doing things they never planned to do. There are people that ended up assisting in multiple homicides, or in trading drugs, or in other types of hard, intense criminality, sometimes even criminality including harming children. There are people that ended up assisting in such crimes, and they were not bad people, but they were corrupted. And it's after they're arrested, they realize, how come I fell for that? How come I didn't realize how bad things were? It was because they held onto toxic restrictions. And those restrictions weighed down on them. And they were not aware that they're the ones that held onto those restrictions. And those restrictions eventually caused them to become so desperate that the desperation turned into delusion. So Yes, they ended up doing very bad stuff, but they have their own role in it. It's not as if someone came by with a magic wand and suddenly demons entered them and took over their bodies and they had no choice. When someone persists in society's restrictions, they'll end up delusional and they end up in places they don't want to be. It's similar to someone that keeps on drinking till they become drunk. They know that if you're drunk, you may do things you normally wouldn't do. Now, if you are in a pub or somewhere, someone puts some toxic um, thing in your drink and you drank it and you suddenly lost it, then anyone would say it's not you because you didn't intend to put yourself in danger. Someone endangered you by putting something in your drink. If you knew that thing was in the drink, you wouldn't have drank it and you would have ended up out of hand like that. But if someone keeps on drinking and drinking, thinking I can handle it, knowing full well that they are tipsy and they're becoming drunk, if then they become drunk and they don't act properly, even though they were drunk, they enabled themselves to become drunk and they didn't walk away from the situation. So they will still get some blame, rightfully so. So understand this. Your intuition can never be gaslighted. Only your mind can. So that is why it's very important to always detach from a situation when it's obvious that some tension is escalating there. Let me give an example. This whole situation with Black Lives Matter. I'm going to take a collective thing. As I mentioned before, the group Black Lives Matter, it has a pagan origin. That's why, as a believer, I don't stand by it. The movement Black Lives Matter lacks male leadership. So that's a big red flag. And there are many other people join that movement for their own agenda. So the movement has been corrupted a long time ago. That's why I don't back it up. I back up the message, which is true that that the lives of black people matter, absolutely. By saying that Black Lives Matter doesn't mean you say that other lives don't matter. Just you highlight the group of people that's systematically victimized by society. By mentioning they matter, you go against the narrative of society. So I agree with that. That's something any believer can agree with. But we can't agree with the movement, even though the movement has a good message, but the movement itself may be something different. Now, so you have this corrupted movement, Black Lives Matter. The message is correct, but the group is corrupted. And then you have people that look at the corruption and they go way into it by saying, oh, it's satanic, it's ancestral witchcraft. And you have a lot of people that listen to such false teachers that highlight the facts about the movement Black Lives Matter. They mention ancestral witchcraft, all of that. Then you have people saying, I agree, Black Lives Matter is bad and all of that. And then you have people who focus much more on the message, saying, but the message is true. So then you have two camps. One side supporting Black Lives Matter, and the other one is against it. And then you have people who just want to bail themselves out. They don't want to admit what's going on, just want to be left alone. So now you have three reactions, which are all bad. What should have happened is as follows. People should detach themselves and look at the whole context. The context is that there is this racial oppression of black people that goes on, that's denied, and as a result, people are fed up with it, and now you have this movement out there that opposes it. That's the context. And now that you know the context, now you're not emotionally invested in it. So now you can say, okay, there's a movement against the racial oppression of black people, which is good, but okay, where are the male leaders? Oh, why aren't there male leaders in the civil rights movement? In the past, there were male leaders everywhere. So is this really a movement by black people, or is it something that's pushed on black people? Okay, and then from there you can look at all the facts and you can see, I understand these people want change, but the way they want change is not going to work that well. There are too many side effects with this. You know what? Let's replace Black Lives Matter, not with All Lives Matter statement. Why? Because this needs attention, this racial oppression against black people. Let's go with another initiative that will address it far better. That's how you constructively deal with a situation. But to constructively deal with the situation, you need to detach. And to detach means that you need to self-reflect. But very few people do that. And this is what I want you to learn also about society. Society doesn't care whether you are attached in an aversive or an attractive way to its restrictions. It can be that society comes with restrictions, for example, sexual restrictions that are way too oppressive, and you go and you fight those restrictions, and because you fight restrictions, you are trauma bonded against the restrictions. You can be trauma bonded with and trauma bonded against. When you're trauma bonded with, you're clinging onto something and you can't handle the fact that the thing you're clinging onto is bad for you. When you're trauma bonded against something, that means that you're so convinced how bad something is that you don't want to see that how you relate to this bad thing negatively affects you. So when, let's say, you have those toxic sexual restrictions in society and you wait and you fight them, you ended up developing tension against those sexual restrictions, and this will lead to sex addictions on your part or to bad relationships. That's an aversive attachment. If you submit completely to the toxic sexual restrictions, you end up with other issues. But you are approved by the community, and this approval by the community becomes a relief from those mental issues. In this case, you are attached in an attractive way. Society can push things out there that will abhor you, and because you keep on holding onto your resistance against it, it deforms you. That's also a form of being gaslighted. When you keep on resisting something, whether the thing you resist is bad or not does not matter. If you keep on resisting something and you keep investing this resistance, eventually you are gaslighted because you become convinced that your resistance is something noble. Even if that resistance is only harming you and only contributes to delusion. Look, just because people oppose something that's bad doesn't mean they're good. Let me give an example. Let's say that there is an increase in rapes in a community. Okay, let's say that's going on. Bad people don't want it because they don't want to be sexually victimized. So they are opposed to what's going on. They want it to stop. Parents who have daughters want it to stop. You have men in general who want it to stop because they feel bad for the women. You have women, of course, who want it to stop. That's obvious. You have feminist groups that want to take advantage of the situation to promote their agenda that want it to stop. So you have all groups of people that want to stop because it's obviously bad. And God himself is against this because it goes against his design. So now you have God himself who's against something, and you have a lot of human beings who are against something. And you also have evil spirits that are against it because to have all this sexual violence unfolding will reveal the fallen state of the community. And once the community is exposed to its fallen state, they may look for Christ when they realize Christ is the only way. So demons want the violence to stop, not because demons care about the women nor the children. No, demons couldn't care less. Demons hate women, but the demons want to maintain their dark grip on the population. And if there is a type of violence that exposes a dark grip, demons are in danger of losing a grip on the population. So now you have God himself, and of course the heavenly host in heaven supports the Most High. So now you have God himself that's opposed to something. You have demons who are also opposed to the same thing, and you have the human population. Most of them, even the bad ones, also are opposed to something. Does it mean now that everyone is on the same team? No. Because everyone opposes it for different reasons. And the only good reason for opposing it is because it goes against God's blueprint, and God's blueprint for sexuality is for us to be safe, healthy, and joyful. So because it goes against God himself, that alone shows you it's wrong. If it goes against God, it's not good for anyone. That should be the main reason why people oppose it. But if people oppose it just because they want relief from the bad that's going on, they're wrong. Even if they're correct about it, that it has to stop, they are wrong because they are opposing it for the wrong reasons. They just want relief. So, if there's something bad going on in a community like that, like increase in rapes or increase in whatever type of violence, why would God intervene? God will intervene to magnify himself so everyone will look up to him. It is because people look up to him that people are delivered. It's by having a focus on Christ that we are delivered. So God will only intervene for our long-term well-being. God will not intervene to give us relief. But that is what society does. Whenever there's a type of violence that increases and becomes way too obvious that it's ruin, society sends the cops, the police, they send the military, they build prisons just to bring relief to the masses. And people support it saying that's a good thing. Well, actually, it's not. Because the root of the issue is not dealt with. But because human beings are often short-sighted, they just want something bad to stop. And just because they oppose or they're upset or pissed off at the bad that's going on, they think that they're good. That's a step of self-righteousness they experience. They feel righteous because they attack something that's bad. Well, let me tell you, demons can attack something that's bad because the bad thing hinders their agenda. The demons would be all right with the bad thing if it promotes their agenda. But if it, in a certain circumstance, hinders their agenda, they're against it and they want to stop. So just because demons are against something bad doesn't mean that the demons are good. And it doesn't mean the demons ought to be praised for being against what's bad. But that's the mentality we human beings have. If someone opposes something that's evil, and they're fierce and determined against the thing that's evil, we praise them as someone that's good. No, because Satan will fight things that are bad just to get us in the dark side. He does it. So, opposing something that's bad doesn't automatically mean you're on the right track. But a lot of folks are convinced that just because you oppose something that's bad, that you're on the right side. That's also a form of gaslighting. When you're gaslighted, you've been trauma bonded. Now, you can be trauma bonded with or trauma bonded against, but whether you're trauma bonded with or trauma bonded against is still a trauma bond. A lot of people are trauma bonded to sexual violence. When you mention things as rape or sexual harassment, they're triggered. They become warriors against it. And others see this fierce ambition, think, whoa, this is a good guy or this is a good girl. No, they're not. They're trauma bonded and they're triggered, that's all. If they were Christ-centered, they would realize, the reason why there's sexual harassment and rape is because people can't handle sexuality. Why? Because they don't do the will of the Heavenly Father. So let's promote the will of the Heavenly Father and let's walk in the will of the Heavenly Father and let the Holy Spirit empower us and we shut down this evil. That's the correct thing to do. Any other thing besides that will only give temporary relief and will not solve anything. It will only relocate the issue to another location. So, do not be tricked by aversive trauma bonds. Don't be tricked by it because it's gaslighting. Just because someone is open and direct about something, even if they're correct, that doesn't mean that they're right. Demons may be correct about many things. That's why fortune telling works. A lot of people go to fortune tellers because what the demons reveal onto them through the fortune teller is correct. But the demons are not right. The demons only reveal those things to you so that you will put your trust on them and not on Christ. And because you trust them, eventually you end up missing walking the power of Christ and you end up in pattern cycles, bonded, and then you perish. So, look at the bigger picture and don't be afraid to self-reflect. Look at the whole situation and not on how you were raised. A lot of folks cling on to how they were raised by their parents. That's a trauma bond. Where your parents, let me say this, you guide children, you don't raise them. Raising and discipline, the things you do in the military, those are military things. You raise a soldier, you discipline a captain. Children, you guide, because that's what they need, guidance. So even the way we relate to one another, it's not in line with Christ. But we are not aware of it because that's all we know. I don't care how your parents raise you. You ought to be renewed in your mind. Everyone has to. And just because you were raised a certain way, that others consider pleasant or approve of, doesn't mean that you're correct. No. You ought to self-reflect and you ought to be renewed in your mind. Well, that's it for now. Keep on agreeing with Christ and be at peace.